Good morning. Welcome to our webinar. And today's topic is change of schools. What happens if the parents cannot agree? Now, over the last 2 years at least, or just before lockdown, our office or our business has seen a huge increase in the request for advice and assistance when it comes to the issue of changing schools for a minor child, or the specific school the minor child should attend. It usually happens when a child enters into a primary school, grade R, or into a high school, grade 8, or grade 7, my apologies, or grade 8, getting it wrong over here. Nonetheless, it usually happens at that specific time, or when the parties change homes, where the minor child no longer lives with both the parents and one parent maybe moved to a different suburb. And now there's a problem because the mother left the main home, the family home, and she moved to a different suburb. And now she wants a minor child to attend a school in that specific suburb. Problems arise. It sometimes happens when the parents changes provinces, where one parent decides to move to a different province with a minor child. And now the issue comes, does the other parent agree to that specific school? Or a different example where the parties have separated or divorced and they no longer can afford that specific school fees, and now they want to enroll the minor child into a different school. Or another extreme example would be where a specific school may not be able to attend to the needs of a minor child. Let's say the minor child has a bit of learning difficulties, struggles with learning, and a special school would be in the minor child's best interest, but the other parent does not want that to happen. He or she wants a minor child to remain in the current school, or vice versa, and so on. So those are the general issues that arises when it comes to these type of matters. Schools the minor child should attend. My apologies for that. I must just check something out here. Okay, we're looking good. Now, there are a few issues that may arise. Number one is the issue, of course, concerning consent. When you enroll a child into a school, they require both parents to consent to the enrollment. Of course, there are implications involved regarding school fees. The school wants to know that both parents are, invested in the paying of the school fees. It becomes an economic issue. But that's one thing, that's a debate for another day. Furthermore, the school would like to know that both parents are invested in the child, being in that specific school. Because if one parent only comes in and enrolls the child, where's the other parent? And furthermore, it's a legal problem because it's a fundamental issue regarding the minor child, that school the minor child attends, and both parents should consent to that. Obviously, if the other parent is not a guardian, he or her consent is not required. But generally, both parents' consent is required for the enrollment of a minor child into a specific school. If the school where the parent wants a minor child to be enrolled into asks where's the other parent, and now, for example, the mother says, I do not know where the father is, the school might either decide, okay, under these circumstances, we shall enroll the minor child into the specific school, or they say, ma'am, we require the father's consent. We do not enroll any minor child here without having the other parent's consent. We want both parents to consent to the enrollment of the minor child. And what further sometimes happens is a parent would enroll the minor child into a school because the school would be sympathetic to the problem the mother, for example, would be, dealing with, not being able to find the father, or the father is being unreasonable in her view. And the school nonetheless doesn't care. The school fees are paid up. The mother gave a deposit for the entire year, or fully paid the school fees for the entire year. And the school enrolls a minor child without the father's consent. So these are the issues that comes to my table, to our desk, and parents have issues. What sometimes happens, and this is very problematic to me, the minor child needs to be enrolled into, let's say, high school the following year. grade 8. And now the enrollment process takes place the previous year, let's say the middle of the year for the latest. The mother sourced a school, the school is good enough, the school said, yes ma'am, we'll be happy to enroll your child, but we require the necessary documentation. The father, in my example, does not want to give consent. He refuses. He said, no, I want the child to go to this specific school or to be homeschooled, whatever the case may be. And I do not believe that the child should go to that specific school. It's not in the child's best interest. Maybe the father is really religious. Maybe he prefers the child to go to a more sporty school. Maybe he believes the child is too smart for the specific school, whatever the reasons are. And the father decides, no, I'm not giving consent. What does the mother do? The child needs to be enrolled into school for the following year. Must the child now remain out of school? Must the child be homeschooled, etc.? So these are the problems that come to my desk, as I mentioned earlier on, and it's a reality. It happens on a regular basis. And to be honest with you, thinking back, I've done a lot of matters like this in court, or part of the relief sword dealt with the issue concerning the schools, and it is something for us to discuss and to deal with. Okay, let's move on. If you have any questions, feel free to pose it. It does not necessarily have to be the specific topic, but obviously I prefer it to relate to child custody, care, guardianship rights. But if it is on the topic of child maintenance, divorce, you're welcome to pose it. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and let us deal with this topic. Okay, first and foremost, guardians. Guardians are the parents who decides on the legal issues regarding a minor child. As I mentioned in previous webinars, you can have a scenario where a parent has no rights of contact to the minor child. The law says, the court said, sir or mom, you have no right to have any contact with the child. You can only see the child once a year via video to keep some contact with the child. But you have guardianship rights over the minor child. You have legal rights over the minor child. Therefore, should the minor child apply for a passport, despite you not having any contact with the minor child, your consent is still required for the minor child's application for a passport. Should the minor child leave the Republic of South Africa, your consent is still required. Should the minor child, sell a home he or she owns, your consent is still required, and so on. Or, for example, should a minor child go for an operation where the guardian's consent is required, your consent is required. So the parent still has guardianship rights. Therefore, I need you to understand, when watching this video and understanding these concepts, there's a difference between custody. Custody meaning, control, care, like you're looking after something. If I say this watch is in my custody, I have it. So custody deals with the issue concerning the physical contact with a minor child, speaking to the child, seeing the child, hugging the child, playing with the child, disciplining the child. That's care and contact. However, guardianship has nothing to do with that. Guardianship deals with the legal aspects of the minor child, the lawful things. For example, as I mentioned earlier, should the minor child apply for a passport, the guardian's consent is required. So, for example, the court may assign care and contact rights to a grandmother, to an aunt, to an uncle, and so on, care and contact rights, but they are not guardians. Should the minor child enroll into a school, their consent isn't required. The court only gave them a right to have communication and contact with a minor child. So I think we're on the same page where that is concerned. I hope I explained it to you well enough. And these are the issues which clients come to my office. They say, advocate, I would like to have custody over the child. The father has never seen the child for the last 5 years. Then I get a bit confused. I know where they're coming from. But, ma'am, you have custody over the minor child. You've been caring for the minor child for the last 5 years. The father never saw the child, so you have sole custody here. No one else can see the child, only you who have the right to have contact with a minor child. What you're discussing here is the issue of guardianship rights. So we unpack it. When I ask the mother, what are the issues, the problems you have? You say, you know what? 5 years ago, when I applied for the nursery school, or for the primary school, or for the high school, I had problems, serious problems. I couldn't get hold of the father, or the father did not want to give consent. Guardianship problems, not care and contact issues. So let us take it further now. Let's create this fictitious example. The mother and the father, they are now separated. They have a child together, and the child has to attend primary school. The child is now, let's say, in daycare or nursery school. I define, yeah, you know where I'm going to with this. And you're applying to various schools. You as a mother, you're applying to various schools in your area for the enrollment of the child. They ask for the father's consent. Where is the father's consent? He needs to consent for the child to be enrolled into the school. They look at the birth certificate, and on the birth certificate, it clearly says this is the father of the minor child, his ID number, his name, and so on. And they want the father's consent for the child to be enrolled to avoid any problems and issues in the future where the father comes there with his lawyers or making noise at the school and saying, I did not give consent to this. Alternatively, should the fees not be paid? And then they approach the father as a co-guardian. The father says, no, I did not consent. Don't come to me. Go to the mother. So they want the buy-in of both parents, I presume. I do not know how it works necessarily from a school's point of view, but I can answer it from a legal point of view. Now the mother has a problem. The father's not willing to give consent. What can she do? First and foremost, she should of course try to have a meeting with the father, try to resolve this issue with the father, see a mediator, see a facilitator, try to resolve this issue as soon as possible because the documentation must be submitted. But if the father, in my example, because the mother has primary care or custody or was looking after the child, or the one that's dealing with this issue concerning the enrollment of the minor child into a school, if the father refuses to give consent and the school wants the father's consent as guardian, and then under those circumstances the mother will have to approach the court. Now the court is the upper guardian of all minor children in its jurisdiction. So jurisdiction basically means the area which the court can operate. For example, if you committed a crime of theft here in Cape Town, you cannot be tried in Johannesburg. It doesn't make sense. The crime happened here, so Johannesburg court will deal with its own problems in its specific area. The same way, for example, if you would like to claim maintenance from your spouse, both of you are living in, let's say, for example, KwaZulu-Natal, you can't decide from KwaZulu-Natal to approach the Western Cape High Court or the maintenance court in the Western Cape to deal with the maintenance matter, because that court does not have jurisdiction over the specific issue because you're not living in the specific area, or there's no connection between the area and the court where you're staying in. Therefore, you need to approach the court where you reside. You can approach a children's court or you can approach the High Court. But I would say approach the High Court if you want to get a blanket order to deal with this issue, so to avoid this issue from happening going forward. But nonetheless, you can decide which court you want to approach, and hopefully the court will be able to assist you. They should be able to assist you. So the court is upper guardian of all minor children within its jurisdiction. It has more authority over that minor child than you have. That's very important to understand. Although you are the mother, you gave birth to the minor child, you are the father, you cause the minor child to be in existence, you are paying your child maintenance, you are partaking in the minor child's life. Despite that, the court still has an overreaching authority over this minor child, over your authority. So, if mother and dad agree the minor child should do X and Y or Z, the court can say, no, me as upper guardian, I think A, B, and C should apply. So that's where I'm going to with this. And of course, you need an arbitrator, you need someone to decide on these specific issues, and the court has that specific authority to do so. So when approaching the court, now in our example, the minor child needs to attend primary school either for grade R or for grade 1, depending upon where the minor child is. The father does not want to give consent. You need to file this documentation as soon as possible. You urgently approach the court. And this is what happened in a matter which I dealt with recently. You urgently approach the court, and the court will ultimately have to now decide what is in the minor child's best interest. You will outline in the documentation. Firstly, you'll say the father's consent is not required for the minor child's enrollment into the specific school. So the court makes an order regarding that. If you have that order, you take it to the school, say, no, yeah, this is a court order. His consent is not required. Hopefully the school will be happy with that. They will say, okay, it's fine, we do not need a buy-in of the father, but at least legally we're entitled to enroll the minor child. But before we get that order, what do we stipulate? What do we outline? Number one is you need to convince the court, firstly, that it would be in a minor child's best interest for the school, for the minor child, my apologies, to attend a specific school. And the father objecting to the minor child enrollment there being no basis therefore. That's very important. You need to be able to explain that to the court. Now, the easier way, the easier scenario, I would say, and I'll deal with two scenarios. The easier scenario would be whereby you, as the mother, has always been the minor child's primary caregiver. You attending to the minor child potty training, to walking, to saying his name first, maybe helping him or her spelling his name, and all those things. So you were involved in my child life all the time. The father was basically missing, or he was there, but he was not involved in those important decisions. Now, all of a sudden, now the minor child is attending school. You do all your homework. You'll be phoning around, sending, requests to schools. Can you enroll my child? Whatever the requirements are. And now when it comes to this part, for the minor child being enrolled, the father now decides he now wants to have a say, and he wants to now put his foot down, which is nothing wrong with that. I honestly don't believe anything wrong with that if you want to have a say in a child's life. But it's unfortunate if the parties can't come to an agreement. That's where I'm going to. And under those circumstances, more than likely, unless the father has very good reasons to oppose you enrolling the minor child into that specific school, the court will find in your favor. And the court, and as a previous case I've done recently, the court gave a cost order in our favor, so the other party had to pay our legal costs. So my client basically did not pay much. Unfortunately, she had to go to court regarding that. You need to explain to the court, number one, it would be in the minor child's best interest. So my scenario, the father was never involved in the child's life, etc. You know what's best for the minor child. The court will more than likely accept what you say. And of course, you're the one that would have to live the brunt of that. You will be the one that will have to take the minor child to school every day, to meet with the teachers, to deal with the homework, the assignments, those sleepless nights, getting those whatever needs to be done for the minor child to attend school. You'll have to deal with those specific issues, not the father in my scenario, in my example. And therefore you would know what is best for the minor child. Despite the father paying child maintenance, he might be the one that has to pay the school fees at the end of the day, but under these circumstances it would be in the minor child's best interest. Unless the father in this specific scenario prefers the minor child to attend a different school, a school that could be equidistant from the parent's home, because then he can have better contact with the minor child, or contact will be better facilitated, etc. Those could also be good reasons. Then we look at the minor child's best interest holistically, because now there is a dispute. The mother said no, school A is good, they have a good reputation. The father said school B is good, they have a good reputation as well. And the mother has her reasons and the father has his reasons. And now we look at this picture, either school is fine, but what is in the minor child's best interest, to be located here or to be located there? But nonetheless, the mother's case should be strong enough if she can convince the court that under these circumstances, it would be best for the minor child to be here. Firstly, because when she leaves school, she can go to the nanny, she can go to grandma, she can go here, I live close by, I work close by. Everything makes sense for the minor child to be here because I'm the primary caregiver. So that's the first example which I've dealt with, where the father is not much involved in the minor child's life. Then the other scenario, the problematic scenario, would be the parties have just been separated. Let's say the minor child is now attending grade 7. No, it's grade 8. I keep getting it wrong all the time. When I went to school, we were in standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, standard 4. Now we would have added this 2 extra years to it. So my brain always has to work out the calculations. But nonetheless, the minor child now needs to attend grade 8, attending high school. Now there is a dispute. This father is very much involved in the child's life as well. He takes the minor child to practice, collects the minor child most of the time, but the minor child lives primarily with the mother. Now there's a dispute. Now, it's difficult for the court now to make a determination as to what school is best for the minor child. But the mother wants a minor child to be enrolled in a specific school. The father refuses, and he does not want to give consent. Problematic. It's not nice for people to live this way. We have a minor child. You should not be fighting over the school, because what's the default? The child that would not attend a school at all. I can imagine the trauma the child will be going through. All his or her friends are accepted for high school A or high school B or high school C, but the child is not accepted yet because mom and dad are fighting over which school the minor child should attend. The minor child does not care. Any school will be fine as long as the minor child will not be at home the following year. Okay, under those circumstances, unfortunately, and I would advise the parents, approach the court as soon as possible to resolve it. You should get the court involved there. The court will have to make a decision as to what school the minor child should attend. Both parents would obviously want to be invested into the matter. The father will have his reasons, and the mother would have her reasons, and the court will ultimately have to make a decision. And the order the court would make is basically the minor child may be enrolled into that specific school, the father's consent is not required, or the court might make an order in favor of the father and stipulate the minor child should be enrolled in school B, but the mother's consent is not required for the minor child to be enrolled in school B, and so on. So those are the issues and those are the complications that may arise regarding the school the minor child should attend. So let's go back to our topic, change of schools. What happens if the parents can't agree? They should agree. They must try to agree. Speak to as much people as possible in order for them to agree. But if they cannot agree, let's take the matter to court and let the court make a decision. I hope that assisted you. We have no questions today, which is fine. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you online again soon. Have a lovely day.